Do you have any idea how many successful entrepreneurs who've had what other people would classify as setbacks? Car accidents, infertility, immigration, addiction. The list goes on and on. Any idea how many successful entrepreneurs have turned those things into an unfair advantage? This is the Unfair Advantage. Turning life's challenges into your secret weapon for success. Life throws curveballs. They're not setbacks, they're setups for success. We dive deep into the lives of amazing entrepreneurs who've embraced their struggles, turned them into strengths, and built kick-ass businesses. And it's not about dwelling on past mistakes, it's about moving forward, building resilience, and creating success despite all the odds. Before we jump into these incredible stories, a big shout out to Brad's agency, ScreamingCow.com, where we turn dreams into digital realities. Let's do this. This is the Unfair Advantage. And now your host, Brad Starnes.
And we're back with another episode of the Unfair Advantage. I am your host, Brad Starnes. Today, I am excited to be joined by Mr. Demetrius Woods, also known as the nickname of Michi. He is the owner of Munchies Fish and Chicken, a food truck serving Midwestern soul food in Columbia, and Essentials Como, which opened its downtown location in February of 2021. Woods has a background in beginning different businesses, including brands for clothing, one called Tent Crafters, and Woods Auto Spa. He was born in St. Louis and moved to Columbia at the age of 17 to avoid a potentially dangerous lifestyle. Woods spent time in prison for nonviolent drug trafficking, during which he developed insomnia and anxiety, but his motivation never faded. And after fighting for legislative changes to be retroactive, he was granted a parole hearing and released from prison in March of 2018. Woods aims to bring a taste of the city for your soul to Columbia through his fish and chicken business, and is motivated to give back to the community and the people that supported him along the way. But before bringing him on, I did want to remind everybody that today's episode is sponsored by Screaming Cow Marketing Group, which is a full-service marketing agency that specializes in helping home service businesses grow more leads through utterly unforgettable marketing. Our agency is focused on delivering on two things your business cares about: how much money you put into marketing and how much you got out, none of the fluff in between. So if your business is looking for more business to do, call the guys who moo. Demetrius, welcome on.
Thank you.
You're good. All right. So you and I obviously talked a little bit about where you're at now, your business, all those things prior to hopping on here. But what I love hearing is just kind of like how people got involved in being an entrepreneur. For some people, they've always had that kind of entrepreneurial grit from like the beginning. Some of them, they accidentally fell into it. So just kind of wanted to hear like a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, that's amazing. Man, for one, I'll tell you out of the gate, I'm humbled to be at a point to answer that question in my life. I'm one of the people who now looking back and it's witnessed with, Columbia Tribune, I made the front page. We lived in Columbia for 1 year from 88 to 89. And 89, I was on the front page, posted with my head on my little candy cart that I had on the corner of our apartments on Ash Street. And it said future entrepreneur. And I laid out my dreams, and that's something we have to go over. I'll send you later. But no, I'm one of the lifelong guys, man. And from there, we took a trip back to St. Louis, and that was from mom and dad kind of splitting up. And so we went with the grandparents into the project, and I met poverty head on, man. Not that we were ever favored in life, but sleeping on grandma's floor brought a new reality. So my ambition, my motion kind of changed with my hustle, and I went into that was late 80s, so early 90s, man. I was head on into the crack and cocaine era, which was all around my community, and it seemed like a way out. So that was the beginning. So I'm one of the lifelong guys.
Yeah, that's it's crazy. One of the things I I look at and I like to showcase and everything is like no matter what you went through, what your background is, where you grew up, all those things, like it does not define you and your future and like where you can go in life. And lot of times it's just that, like, in a way, if you look back, like that one choice of just like going to Columbia is what probably like changed your life. Like, and it's like you probably
Oh,
think back to yourself, like if I didn't just go to Columbia, what would have happened and everything like that. So
well,
it's
how dynamic. I mean, not to cut you off, but to make the great point, how dynamic. Let's move it forward now with how dynamic my story is. And,
hmm
I was released this time in 2018 under appeal. So I was still under the jurisdiction, really, of the court's decision. And I was in St. Louis running a family business, car lot out in Ferguson. And it didn't,
Okay.
family business, it wasn't going well. And after a year, Nipsey Hussle gets murdered, and that sent me in dystoria. He's from the gang I used to associate with out of St. Louis. His set was the parent set, and here's this kid who's changed his life, and he's talking real estate. He's talking we could do it, and I looked up to him, and then he's murdered. That kind of rocked my core, and I said, you know what? I'm going back to Columbia. I'm opening a business. I know I can make money there. That's my home. It's better than where I love St. Louis, but it's just not that easy to make it. Not that it's easy anywhere, but I
Yeah.
knew Columbia had more of a ground, and I made that decision. And I said that to say this: ultimately, that decision granted me my clemency. If I wasn't in Columbia, I don't think I'd have the voice for Parsons to hear me later on in life. And we'll get to that, I'm sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was Columbia saved my life, bro. And so, but you are correct. Starting with day one, it gave me a hope that I never forgot. Even
hmm
through all prison, St. Louis streets, I never forgot Columbia from that inception in '88.
Wow. Yeah, it's I just recently got done reading the book called Atomic Habits, and they talk about like getting yourself out of the environment in a way that like puts you down those bad habits and everything. So just like even just changing your location, whether it was Columbia or not, like just changing to another city and not being around, everything that you already knew growing up. And I like the joke that I can drive St. Louis or Kansas City. I spent 5 years there. Like I could put a blindfold on and I could drive those like without
Mm-hmm.
a problem, because it's like you just know where everything's at. It becomes a routine that you hang out with your buddies after this time on this day, and all of that. And sometimes just changing the place you're at and everything is what works. So I'm looking at an article right now. And so it says you spent 11 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that process look like whenever like you were there? Like I guess what got you there? How was it being in prison? I'm seeing here that it was like you first were sentenced for 25 years without the possibility of parole.
Mm-hmm.
So then obviously looks here you're out at 11. Um, so
Yeah, that story, and it kind of goes back. I entered the prison system at 16, going into 17. I was certified out of St. Louis County for assault, a shooting. I had shot up a van of a guy that I thought owed me money, and I was certified. Luckily, no one was hurt by the grace of God. But yeah,
yeah.
I took a 7-year sentence with a 120 shock. I done the 120 shock in Boonville, and I called home, and they said the number's 573. Yeah, I'm like, hey, that's not St. Louis. So that was my re-inception back to Columbia, was 1996 actually, when I
Okay.
was released from the 120-day shock at Boonville. Well, I spent a couple years back in Colombia, I got to hustling, and of course I was violated on that probation and got another 7-year sentence running together. So I entered the prison system then. I may have been 18 then. So I had my first drug conviction at the age of 17. And I went in and I ended up doing 4.5 of those 7 years. And now I'm so accountable. But back then I started hustling and all I knew, I needed to take care of my family from prison. And that's my life. That's who I am now. I've done that. But those were my decision making, and that caused me to be CR'd. And what CR mean is a conditional release. That's the maximum they can really hold you. So I did 4 years, 4 months on a 7-year sentence then. And I was released, and I come back to Colombia. This was December 2002. And I was out for 4.5 years, and I ended up living like a double life. I was still kind of hustling, but I was right at winging away. I'd opened up, as I heard you say before, Tent Crafters back then in like 2003. And in 2005, I opened Motivated Fashions, which now we have Motivated the brand. I switched it to a clothing line. But nevertheless, so I had those two. And at the end of my thing, this is the actual last run. Me and my co-defendant are talking about it as we're coming from Kansas, coming down 70 in Lafayette County. We're laughing, saying, man, this is it. This is the last run. And I'm laid back, high off marijuana. I had to be on something to be riding with a trunk with 20 pounds of coke. But, I stayed out for 4.5 years, and then that day happened. And that's how I ultimately ended up with the sentence. I took that trafficking case to trial. We were arrested in Lafayette County. And I went to a judge's trial, and I ended up with, actually, it was 25 years with a 4-year sentence for a pistol that I got caught with in Colombia running concurrent. So in all actuality, they treated it as 29 years without the possibility of parole. So that's what I ended up with, and ended up serving 11 years, man. But from the day I went in there, I fixed my mind on 29 nothing. There's no way I could do that. It's no way. I might as well end it right now if I could see doing that. So looking back, man, Demetrius Michi, I fixed my mind that I'm not doing it. I'm figuring I'm not going to jump the fence and get shot or get 5 more years, but I'm going to make a key, and I'm walking out of that gate. And man, through and now I know I give God glory, but back then I wouldn't. 85% of my life, I never believed in God, but man, by the grace of God, it happened.
Yeah, I was going to ask you on that, because I've heard you say now 2 or 3 times by the grace of God, and so I imagine, like, whenever you guys got caught and you like got that sentence and everything, like that was kind of like your rock bottom in a way, and that's when you were like, there is no coming back from like where I'm at. Like I can only get better from here. Like it's either end it or get better. So what was that journey with, like, kind of, navigating your way to Christ and everything like that? I'm part of a church that, like, our pastors will go and like preach to the prisons and everything like that, and try to show people in prison, like, there is so much more out of here and what you've been used to. So I'm kind of curious as to how that happened for you.
Well, I'll be honest with you, that wasn't the rock bottom, and I'm very keen with rock bottom, my worker program, and I'll get to that. But so I was arrested. I did I entered the prison system, and for 5 years or so, you couldn't talk to me about drugs or anything. And I had a reputation, I was the guy, I had the big wheels, big gold chain, so people kind of knew of me. They thought, and granted, I got caught with 20 pounds of coke, so coming from the hood, I was kind of popular. And of course that wasn't all mine, my co-defendant, which is like a big brother to mine, but we were partners though. So yeah, I was associated, but nevertheless, I entered the prison system, and I'm like, man, no way, I'm not dealing with drugs. But again, I psyched myself. I have to get this 29 years off my back. So I wanted, talking about drugs was a conspiracy, but sure enough, Demetrius reared up And after about 5 years, I said, man, I need money. I got to pay lawyers. What if this happens? What if that happens? And I said, what do you mean no drugs are coming in Jefferson City Correctional Center? I said, I could do it. I'm Superman. I'm super drug dealer. And next thing you know, I'm in prison trafficking drugs, and I get locked up under investigation in ADSEG for talking on the phone. In St. Louis, we got this slang we call a digital scale, a clock. And I was on the phone and I said something about a clock, and they used that, and they gave me a conspiracy by, again, the grace of God, because then I'm coming up to that rock bottom. I'm in ADSEG, and my boy in Colombia, I left out when he was 20 months old, and at this time he's 5th grade, graduating to 6th grade. You know me, I'm 44, so I knew this is new, a graduation 5th to 6th grade, but they changed the structure. So he wrote me a letter and he said, Dad, he was like, I knew you couldn't come to my graduation, but I thought at least you would have called. And I'm telling you, man, I'm in Max. I'm in the hole, all my Crip buddies, everything. We yelling through the doors, and man, I felt this big as a man. You know, I tried to get up under that bunk and cry. And it was and I couldn't call them. They had took the phones out of ADSEG to try to teach us from going. And I was a trustee and everything, because I manipulated every situation. And not just that, I wasn't a total piece of crap. I knew respect. I knew how to handle. I wasn't a thief or anything. So, yeah, they let me work in there, but there was no more phones for anybody. So I had to write him a letter, man. And I wrote him a letter, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do everything I can to get out of here. And then I told him, stay out. So that was a life change. And again, like I told you, if I ain't been the toughest guy or the smartest guy or nothing, but I will say that I have a word that I stand on. And if it comes out of my mouth, I'm a man about it. So once I made those promises, man, I had to stand on it. And that was my rock bottom. I was released from ADSEG, and I went to a program called the ITC program in Jefferson City Correctional Center. And it's more of it's a Christian Catholic based program, and you have the Catholic diocese done a lot of Jeff City, did a lot of donating to make life easier, get us to see human, and it was great because a lot of those guys really had life and were just making a change. And for you to see a guy with a life sentence saying, "Man, I want something different," who the heck am I with an opportunity? And man, and I know God was watching, because right after completing that program, standing on business, they call it right now, because I had plenty of opportunity. I'm like a kingpin in prison. I was even bigger, you know, gang wise, drug wise. I'm a stature, and I was standing on business. Like, no, I'm done with that. And therefore, after my efforts on my legal kind of changed, but yeah, that was my process of rock bottom, and that was that time where. And I tell people that now, you know, I still wear a gold chain. I usually got rap music or something playing at one of my businesses. I play it in the back there at MU Stadium. But the thing is, I deleted cocaine and illegal drugs from my life. I made a promise to my boy, and that just ended up being right. Now, I put other stuff in there. If it got a barcode on it, I may be selling it, but no, that changed. It just made life. And now when people, as I'm on your podcast, which is a blessing, I'm humbled by, people see me doing the right thing, I'm patted on the back. I'm paid a paycheck, you know. So it's not convincing now, and I don't want to tell people to get them over optimistic on the change process, because it is. And now I know in reality this doesn't happen, man. I look at all my friends, and I have to separate from a lot of those people because they haven't made that transition.
Yeah. Hey, you got friends for different reasons, different seasons, than friends for a lifetime. And it's like, it's unfortunate, but sometimes like, it's just like their season with you has expired, and there's like, it sucks, but there's no reason for them to be in your life, or maybe there's no reason for you to be in their life the other way around and everything. And so it's sounds like your boy like saved your life, and like he is the reason why you do everything you do now.
Oh yeah, and I don't stop short of making sure he knows. You know, I'm over at my first shop, sent post-release this time, and it's Woods Auto Spa. He graduated last year, and I told him, no, I ain't buying you no Charger. I don't want nothing to do with that. I'm going to give you, 25% of this company, and, man, he opens and closes 6 days a week. So, now it's turning around. I'm able to be here, and, you're definitely right. He gave me, what do we say, growing up, manning up. You know what I mean? It gave me that ability to do that. I didn't have the male figure. My stepfather wasn't strong enough to be that figure, but it come full circle. My boy at that time, probably 12, 11 years old, stuck it to me.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. So you leave prison, and then there's at some point, so I saw a pic online of you with Mike Parson. What was that process? And where in time frame was that at?
The Clemency process?
Yeah.
My God, man. It was, so I was released, like I said, in 2018. So when I was released, I was in there, and I wasn't ever playing basketball, not too many sports. I was paying extra for library time and stuff. I was reading, I was educating myself. And I'm a guy, I dropped out in freshman year there in St. Louis at Webster Groves, and I wanted to go to the streets and hustle. I thought that was more lucrative. But I self-educated, and I learned about the initiative process, and in my head, I was going to put on the Missouri ballot to take no parole off of nonviolent drug offenses. And it took me and my mom a year to get the initiative petition approved through the Secretary of State to figure it out. But by the time we get it approved, they put a mission statement kind of when you're going to go on the ballot. And they were saying, yeah, this is cool. The office of the governor or somewhere of the state and the prison, they said, yeah, this is cool. But this bill, this statute is coming out, and Senate Bill 491, voted on 2014, goes in effect 2017. So here it is. I have to wait 3 years. I'm learning to find out if the state of Missouri will honor, they're getting rid of no parole for drug offenders, great, but will they do it retroactively? And I had to wait till 2017 just for this question and answer. But what I did then is I went to Mental and Esquire, which is a lawyer attorney boot camp. And man, for me writing my own declaratory judgment, the attorneys, and God bless Kent Gibson and Dan Hunt out of Jeff City, who rolled with me and charged me minimal, because they honored the fact, hey, Demetrius, you wrote this. We're just walking this in. This is awesome. And man, that ended up getting me Daniel Green, a judge out of Cole County. He granted me a parole hearing. He said, hey, this makes sense. They got rid of it. You said no, but I think it's not part of his sentence. And I got a parole hearing. I went in that parole hearing. At that time, my little sister was a parole officer out of Ferguson. But I went in the parole hearing, and I told him, I said, hey, could you close your books? And because they start off, you were arrested on this day with this amount of drugs. And I said, hey, if I don't be rude, would you close your books? And they looked. And I said, hey, that's not going to tell you near amount of the drugs I sold throughout my life. It's not going to tell you nothing about what I would have done if you would have tried to take them. And the parole board looked like, my God. And man, I just stood on business again, what I was taught in that program and what I learned to be as a man. And I told them, yeah, I did that. I said, but I'm not making a choice today not to do that. And that's the program, man. And it's by God's grace that now I'm still a testament of that. But at that time, they gave me an immediate parole date. I was released, as I told you, 2018. And 2019, Nipsey Hussle was murdered. That kind of rocked me spiritually. Gave me the spooks to come back to Columbia, and I opened my first shop. I had $5,000 to my name, and my oldest son come through, and he gave me $5,000 more to go with it just by seeing my momentum, like, go, Dad. And I opened my first shop by her. And luckily I did. A year later, I lost in the Missouri Supreme Court. And they said, you have 9 years to go back and do. And I had my bags packed. I mean, I was like, man. And it's funny now because I often illustrate it in my mind. And I said, we have a white Republican cop as a governor. It's no way. Parsons from Joplin, I've been in prison, many of those guys. I've become friends with a lot of them, but they told me about their upbringing. It's just, people like me aren't around. And Parsons even shared that when he called me up. But nevertheless, I had my bags packed. I'm ready to go back and fight this. I'm going to come back out because I'm going to fight it right, and I'm going to come back out. And Parsons said, no, you aren't. And at that time, Andrew Bailey, who's now our attorney general in Missouri, and he called me and he's giggly and he said, hey, Demetrius Woods. And I'm on my lot here at Woods Auto Spy. Hey, how you doing? I was calling to see if you can come up and talk to us. I said, yeah, I'll call my law team and my little support. He said, nah, why don't you bring one of your younger kids? And I was like, whoa, I lit up. And I knew then, and I wrote, this is the beginning of COVID. So we can say rapes and the cop and this and that, but this is the beginning of COVID. So imagine our governor's shoulder then. And the Capitol was closed down. When we went there, we went in through the basement. It was maybe 4 or 5 highway patrol down there, security, and then about 7 or 8 of the governor's staff, man. That's how spiritual this ended up being. So to answer your question, at that time, after being out, so this is what, 2020, I got my clemency here on the wall. Parsons called me up and he gives me his first clemency at the height of COVID. And man, I didn't take that for granted, man. So I hit the ground running after that. And I kept working. All I was doing until then was working. I took life a lot more serious. I wasn't amused by the club and spending my money on things that I used to fill my insecurities with. I was 11 years. I figured that stuff kind of out. So, man, I had a little money kind of saved up, and I went and invested in a downtown location and been kicking since then.
Wow. So then after that, you open up the like your auto shop and everything. This happens with Mike Parson, and then right at the beginning of 2020, you also opened up like the fish and chicken food truck as well, like while all this is going on, or where did that take place?
Well, right after I opened in 2019, probably 6 months in, I was like, man, and my idea was the rent was like $2,300 or something at my first shop. And I was like, man, I have to add, I have to have security to pay this rent, not just window tint, not detailing. So I found a food trailer, my first trailer. A guy in Michigan heard a bit of my story and he said, my friend, you're going to feed families. If you come by tonight, I give to you for $9,500. I have full offer of $12,000 Thursday. I couldn't leave the state, so I called my little brother and I sent my little brother up there with my last tidbits of cash I put together, and I bought my first food trailer, and that was the beginning of Munchies Fish and Chicken. So, and in my mind, I'm putting a room on this building to help pay the rent. But I forgot when I was in prison watching the Travel Channel of the food truck epidemic. So the whole city of Columbia is calling like, hey, can you come here? Can you come there? And a couple calls, I'm like, how many people did you say? So I hustled up and I bought another trailer. And man, and shortly thereafter, again, being COVID, I got the Brassos. I said, man, we're going to be recreational soon. I said, and these cigars and my tobacco and my snacks from St. Louis are selling a bit at this little car shop. I said, how much do you want for this downtown building? And I said, are you sure? I said, what will you really take? And I negotiated a great lease, and that was the beginning of Essentials, your neighborhood bodega, which is Columbia's first bodega. And me knowing, being the hustler I am, I knew that word turned me on when I was in prison reading all the Brooklyn and Queens crime books. And when I went through that little era, for I guys like, I live this life, I don't need to read it. But the bodega word, I studied it, and that has been one of my greatest attributes of advertising. Now we have 3 bodegas in Columbia, and the last 2 serve Munchies Fish and Chicken menu in the bodega. So I have kitchens in those too.
Man, this I'm like caught up in the fact that like you couldn't even get out of Missouri, and you got this opportunity to buy this truck for 3,500, $4,000 less than like what it was like being offered at. And I'm sure it was like your last 10 grand. And
Yeah.
you're like, there's a way. It may not be my way. Like maybe I'm not leaving Missouri and going to get this, but I'm going to find somebody to go and get it. And
Yeah, I'll tell you this a little bit. I'll try to shorten the stories up because my stuff goes crazy. But so I send my brother up there and I scrape this cash together, and I
yeah,
get a little bit from mom in St. Louis because that's where they're at. And I sent him up, and he's in Kalamazoo, Michigan at midnight, and he's dealing with nice Muslim guy, but he's going kind of by Islam culture, and he's up in Michigan right out of Detroit. He say, no, my friend, I can't take cash. So now I got to figure out how to send 9,500 electronically. I get a couple of friends, get it kind of figured out, drain the rest out of the business account, and PayPal and Cash App shuts down. They're like, what are you doing? So now I got to clear all this stuff, and I get them out about 3 in the morning. And it was crazy. But yeah, it's a testament, man. And that's why I openly share it, because let's people know, man, that no matter how hard it is, no matter what obstacles you come up against, and I like to be candid, man. I'm from St. Louis. I went to 1984. I was living on the north side by the Grand Water Tower, and mom comes up with the great idea. Now I see the greatness in it, but she integrated me into Chesterfield School. So I was the little yellow bus coming from the north side, coming into an all-white school. And man, I ensured some sheer racism, and in my community, Overland, Missouri, in the 80s, wasn't real nice to my family. But I say all that to say my interactions back then give me the ability to have friends like Governor Parsons, like our Attorney General, who's the top cop of the state, and it goes on. Some Cherie Welsh here, a Northern Boone County Republican white lady who's my friend now. But those instances helped me grow. And I say that to deliver the message to people, no matter what you go up against, no matter what. Both of my dad and stepfather both bought crack from me. What does that have to do with the man I'm choosing to be today? I'm not going to deal no drugs with I'm not dealing drugs, period. But I'm dang sure not going to do it with my boy. You know what I mean? I'm going to learn and do it better, you know, and that's what I just tell. No matter what you hear about history or past, make it better, do better, be courageous.
Wow. I've been like I think this is probably episode 7 or 8. I'm not even sure where we're at right now. And just listen to everybody that I've been talking to. And what's been a common theme is like, the pandemic and COVID like sucked for everybody, but like it was a opportunity for a lot of people. And so like I'm looking through all this as you're talking. I'm bouncing through more articles and everything like that, and it's like it's almost like COVID was this secret blessing that kind of allowed you to just like catapult in your life.
It was, and I never really illustrated like that. I had an interesting time. During that time, he had a lot of crazy words. Trump is a jerk by the mouth. Let's just say it. But a lot of his system, man, and during that time, man, I can't. He held up. You know, Governor Parsons for our state of Missouri, and for that, and I say that for you to say for me, bro, COVID was a blessing. COVID made me see I've never lived a life where the government sent me $2,500. I lived a life saying the government don't care about me. They owe me reparations, 40 acre. I was reading that book. They was teaching us this crap. So COVID gave me a whole new belief. And now I'm standing on 10 toes that I don't think people know unless you paid attention. But definitely COVID was, man, and it made a believer out of me. I'll tell you this. I left this out of my long story, too. Is that, did you think about where I got the name Essentials Bodega? It's Essentials with a Z. I put my slang at the end. I took the S and made a Z. But during COVID, guess what? The neighborhood, somebody called and said, hey, they're open over there at Woods Auto Spa. And what they do, the health department would come out and they would look, and you had to fill out a questionnaire. And when they sent back affirmative or not, if you were not, you had to close. But if you were affirmative, do you know what they called you? You're deemed essential.
Essential,
I
yeah.
took that word and I made it. So don't talk to me about what COVID did. So telling you the honest truth, that me and my brother that I got arrested with, me and him were talking, and the word essentials come out from that conversation, and I stuck with it and ran with it. So yeah, COVID was and you have the rest of the world that got relaxed, and it kind of hurt people, but not for me. It opened a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah. Wow. The after talking with you and everything like that, the next time I'm in Colombia visiting my in-laws and everything like that, I'm gonna be making sure that I'm coming by the food truck. I'm gonna come say hi and all of that. But for anybody who can't make it to Colombia, but want to connect with you, maybe just learn a little bit more about your journey in entrepreneurship, or maybe they're navigating some of the things that you've gone through in life and just want to just chat a little bit. What's the best way for those individuals?
Well, all of my social media platforms are motivated Michi. That's like the moniker. When I was released 5.5 years ago, my social media handles was Money Meech. That's who I used to portray. And when I got out,
Yeah.
I said, I don't want that. And this plan started because I wanted to show people from the day out. I knew it could be a day where my character was called to question. And I didn't want to stand for it. I didn't want to have to carry a gun. I didn't want to represent my whole life. So I changed it to Motivated Michi, and that's all my social media platforms. And social media, Facebook, man. If one day I meet Zuckerberg, I tell him, man, that when I was sitting in jail, I was like, man, this is all I left. It was like MySpace, but Facebook has been awesome. Facebook helped me with my freedom. And I took that energy and I went with my businesses. I tell people, hey, I'm trying this. And they say, do it. And it just the momentum. So social media,
Yeah.
that's the best. And if you can Google Demetrius Woods. It's hundreds of our St. Louis Post. I was on the front page and I cried when I was able to show my mom the Post calling me a reformed drug dealer. And that's even more to make me stand on business. But yeah, Motivated Michi, and just Google No Parole Parsons or Google Demetrius Woods. It's so much out there, man. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely get like all of that in the notes and everything like that for the episode. But I wanted to just highlight one thing that I caught in that. You went from your handle had money to motivation, and so many people think that money is going to solve their problem. I mean, that's probably like a lot of what happened before with you. It's like I need to make more money. I need to make more money. And it's like money can be both good and evil, but it's like it's the motivation in your life and what makes you feel human and as a person, and somebody who can actually contribute to the community and everything, that is really what drives you as a person. And like the money is something that comes out of it. It's like allows you to keep score in some way. But for a lot of people, like even myself, like when I made that shift in my mindset from it's about the money to it's about the people and the impact, like it's changed the game for me. And so I as you said that, I was like, I have to call out the difference between those, and it went from money to motivation. Like it's huge.
That's weird that we have so much in relation. You're a very intelligent brother. I could tell we relate. So you've answered so much and caught on to me, understood me. But I'll tell you this, I do a lot of speeches with the kids and stuff like that. And one of my monikers during my speeches at the high schools or whatnot, and I tell them, when I stop letting money be the first thing, the motivator, when I quit letting money be my number one, I started making money. And they laugh because I have 4 physical locations. I'm at Mizzou and selling hot dogs. And I tell them, man, that's the truth, brother. When I quit, I never wore a Rolex when I was in the streets letting money be number one. Now the jeweler called me up and say, hey, you can get this half off because you're doing right. And I'm like, what? The owner of book writers got kind of upset, but no, the truth prevails.
Yeah.
So no, it's crazy that you picked up on that, man. That blows my mind, and just realize that for you to speak that out, because that rocks me, man. I lived my whole life letting money, and that had blinders on me. I was doing stuff I should have never done with common sense. But when I got that money out of the way, and now I'm able, now still work, don't get, and taxes are going up more and more when you make money. But no, you figure it out. But no, man, it's a lot more comfortable, brother.
Yeah. And it's like you can then do more with the money too. Like I'm on this goal of like, how can I give, like I go to church, and based on our conversation, sounds like you do and all that, like the Bible says you give 10% and everything like that. I'm like, no, how can I give like 15? How can I give 20? Like, and then
you
all these other
50 back like, oh, man, I give more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, awesome. Thanks again for hopping on today. This was a great conversation for everybody who is listening. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review so we can continue to produce more episodes like this. And please, if you are listening to this, share this on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. They call it X now, anything like that, so we can make sure that we get all of this out to the people who deserve to hear what's been going on in Michi's life. But until next time, this is your Unfair Advantage.
You've been listening to The Unfair Advantage. We're all human. We all make mistakes. But Brad's mission is to turn those into useful tools. Tools that can propel you forward like you've never imagined. He's not an expert, but he's been in the trenches. He hit rock bottom when his fintech company folded in 18 months, and he was knee-deep in the poor me attitude. But you know what? He bounced back, and now his mission is to help you do the same. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Visit the website at bradstarnes.fyi. The podcast URL is unfairadvantagepodcast.com. And find Brad on Facebook and LinkedIn at Brad Starnes Official. See you next time on The Unfair Advantage.